The conversation of who the Chicago Bulls should draft at number 4 is already in the thick of it amongst Bulls fans. On today's episode, I want to talk about the two most commonly mocked players to go to the Bulls at number 4 in Cam Boozer and Caleb Wilson, and what the current mocks now after the draft lottery are saying about who could fall. We'll talk a little bit about that. Plus, with all the draft measurements now in, I'm going to talk about two of my favorite options for the Chicago Bulls at number 15 and why they stand out to me. We'll talk about all that, plus Bryson Graham's draft strategy and mentality going into the 2026 draft and how that could impact how the Bulls attack the board at number 15 and at number 4. We're going to get to all that plus more right after this. What's going on, Bulls fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bulls Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. Make sure you guys hit that subscribe button as well. Help the channel grow. I say this at the beginning of it because about 40% of our daily viewers are not subscribed to the channel. It could be because I pop up in their algorithm because I post so much, but make sure you guys hit that subscribe button. We're trying to get to 30K subscribers before the NBA draft, and we're right on the precipice of getting that done. Less than 400 subscribers needed to get to that. I know there are 400 of y'all watching that aren't subscribed because guess what? I see the numbers. So make sure you guys hit that subscribe button. With that said, let's go ahead and jump into this content for today, y'all. So the conversation at number 4 is starting to get pretty loud, right? And there are starting to be some questions that are popping up. Could Caleb Wilson even go to the Chicago Bulls at number 4? Is there a chance that he can be off the board before the Chicago Bulls even pick at number 4? Of course, the commonly mocked players in the top 4, we've talked about it for months now: Dybantsa, Darryn Peterson, Cameron Boozer, Caleb Wilson, right? Most of the mocks still do have Caleb Wilson going to the Chicago Bulls, but 2 of the 7 recent mock drafts do have Wilson leaving before the Bulls picks there. So there is some buzz growing that Caleb Wilson can actually go as high as number 2 in this draft, is what some of the conversation is starting to be about with the Chicago Bulls. And that is an interesting standpoint, right? Because, of course, the most common talked about guys, Darryn Peterson for a large part of the college season and the NBA season was projected to go number 1 overall. Dybantsa kind of flirted in there. Now he seems to be the number 1 consensus player at number 1, right? But, with trades with the Utah Jazz and the Washington Wizards willing to trade back and what that could mean, it could definitely throw off some things with the draft board. So while it seems like a lot of Bulls fans are starting to fall in love with Caleb Wilson after watching some of his combine tape and just starting to learn a little bit more about Caleb Wilson, right? Like the mentality of Caleb Wilson, I think, is something that is going to separate him. Even earlier in the season when people were talking about like Caleb Wilson having some character concerns or stuff like that, I have always said, like, I think the Bulls do need a little bit of a head case on this team. And that is the level of competitor that Caleb Wilson is, right? A lot of people are starting to compare him in competitiveness-wise to Kevin Garnett. And I like that comp because I think when you look at him, comps for play style there's a lot of wrinkle into that. But as far as the mentality, I do think that Caleb Wilson has some of that head case factor to him. And, he's a guy that competes on the defensive side of the ball. His draft combine measurements came in with his wingspan slightly over 7 feet. I think it was about 6'8.5", almost 6'9", with that draft combine numbers. And so I do think Bulls fans are going to have to very heavily watch how the draft stock of Caleb Wilson moves during this draft combine, right? So I think over the next month, the draft combine is only a week, but over the next month plus until we get to the NBA draft at the end of June, you could very well see Caleb Wilson rise up some draft ranks. And if there ends up being a trade on top of all of that, it can really throw some things off. So I say this because I know there is a segment of the fan base that basically forms their opinion based off what there's commonly heard, what they see on social media, those type of things. And so, while Caleb is going to be one of the guys talked about a lot to go to the Chicago Bulls, there is a chance that he could be off the board before then. Now, for many Bulls fans, they look at it as at being number 4, you just have to sit back and watch and wait who's going to fall to you at number 4. I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing either when it comes down to all of that, right? But I do want to talk about some of these mock drafts and how they're commonly mocked to go to the Chicago Bulls. Like I said, we got 7 here that have updated their mocks since the draft lottery. And let's talk about it. The Ringer, number 1, has AJ Dybantsa going number 1, Darryn Peterson going number 2, and Cam Boozer going number 3. This is the most common way that mocks have it falling. Have Caleb Wilson going to the Bulls at number 4. And I think the things, we'll talk about what stands out about him, right? SB Nation also has Caleb Wilson going to the Chicago Bulls at number 4. Joe Cowley at the Chicago Sun-Times came out with a mock. Not that he's a draft expert, but he also have the Chicago Bulls getting him. Then you get to CBS Sports that actually have Cam Boozer. They are the first ones to have Cam Boozer going to the Chicago Bulls at number 4, with Caleb Wilson going into the top 3 to the Memphis Grizzlies. The Athletic also has Caleb Wilson going to the Chicago Bulls as well. NBC Sports has Cam Boozer going to the Chicago Bulls. They actually have Caleb Wilson falling out of the top 4 entirely, right? They actually have Kingston Flemings going to the Memphis Grizzlies at number 3, and considering that they are probably going to trade Ja Morant, we have heard that it's a almost certainty that they're going to be trading Ja Morant at some point in this offseason. I guess it makes some sense in regards to that, but that would really be kind of the first thing to really disrupt the top 4, right? But they have the Bulls with their option to choose between Cam and Caleb Wilson. They actually have the Bulls drafting Cam Boozer there at number 4, with Caleb Wilson falling down to number 5. Jeremy Woo of ESPN has the top 4 going pretty much the same way, with Caleb Wilson going to the Bulls at number 4 and Cam Boozer going to the Memphis Grizzlies there at number 3. So that's where the mocks now have things kind of falling out. For those that like to know why is Caleb Wilson such a good fit for the Chicago Bulls, right? The elite athleticism is the thing. The motor of Caleb Wilson is something that, of course, is going to stand out as well. He puts pressure on the rim in transition. This guy is a monster. If you talk about potentially getting out in transition with Matas Buzelis and Caleb Wilson, both being guys that are out in transition with Josh Giddey leading the fast break, that is going to be a dangerous combo, because you have Matas, who can stop and pop the 3. You have Caleb Wilson, who then can finish around the rim. You have Matas, who also can finish with a lob around the rim. It can be very entertaining in regards to that, right? I think Caleb Wilson also has the elite defensive upside, that he can be an elite defender. We're talking about Caleb Wilson having the potential to guard 4 spots on the floor and some small ball 5s, depending on how teams are running that one, right? And I think also the secondary rim protection. We already know Matas Buzelis is a really good shot blocker. If we do get that rim protecting center, Caleb Wilson, in the supplemental rim protection that he can have, both in how he guards around the rim and actually blocks and deters shots, can be hugely beneficial for the way the Bulls like to play basketball. His ability to get and disrupt the passing lanes also stands out into that one, right? I think when you look at it, when Bryson Graham, his desires for size, length, athleticism, and physicality, Caleb Wilson fits the mold for that. Now, I do think so, and I've said this, some people have taken the slap thing and made it like this mandate that if you don't fit in the slap, he won't take you. That's not the truth of the matter, but I think pairing Caleb Wilson with Matas Buzelis would give the Chicago Bulls a modern, versatile, switchable forward combination and pairing. And then you still have Noah Essengay, who you have to develop as well. But that's really a young upside front court completely. And that puts and helps jumpstart that rebuild for the Chicago Bulls. The biggest question about Caleb Wilson is how legitimate will that 3-point shooting become in the NBA, and his half-court skill, meaning taking more players off the dribble, learning to create separation in that mid-range. How well can he do those things, I think, are things you also have to look at, right? And then you have the Cam Boozer pick, right, who is not my favorite player in this top 4, but I think when you look at it, like, Cam Boozer is a guy that could very well be an offensive hub. Like, the reality of it, he's a really good rebounder. He's a really solid passer. He is somebody that can shoot the 3 and space out the floor in regards to those things. There is a lack of athleticism, right? And I want to be clear in that one. But it's not like in the modern league, if you are so good offensively to where you can be a hub, we've seen that you can overcome some lack of athleticism in regard to that. This is a guy that has an extremely high floor, right? It's probably the best winner out of everybody in the top 4 as well. He rebounds, he passes, he scores highly efficiently, and he does impact winning up into this level of basketball that he's played on, right? I do think that he is a little bit maybe of a safer guy because of the effort that he gives defensively with the high ceiling that he has offensively. It all makes sense in regards to that, right? So I think you got to look at that part of it. The questions in regards to him are the athletic ceiling. There's no burst, and can he actually turn into a star at the NBA level Or is he going to be one of those kind of elite level role players like a Aaron Gordon, right? Who is more than just a role player, but he's not a star either. And I don't mean combination or comparisons to their play style. I more so mean a role on a team. But, that's a question for Caleb Wilson as well, right? I don't mean that to just be a thing for Cam Boozer. So you have to work into that. If Cam Boozer does fall to number 4, I do think that Bryson Graham may have to decide between upside and certainty. And that's just the reality of it. But when you look at Bryson Graham and his draft philosophy, it's there. Like he said it, the Bulls need to infuse this roster with more talent. That's what you have to do at number 4, right? He emphasized that for number 4 and number 15 and the second round picks, he wants to find value out of all those picks. He doesn't want to draw a hard line. And this is just what you have to take. And I know that us as fans, we're going to do that because that's what we do. That's what the mocks are going to do, right? So I don't blame anybody for that. But he will use the body of work of a player. They will use analytics. They're going to use intel. They're going to use workouts. They're going to use management. They're going to use in-person interviews. These are all quotes from Bryson Graham and what's going to be the Chicago Bulls draft philosophy. And that's the right mentality to take when you go into this, right? He said this: we want talented players. We have to infuse this team with more talent. We are not where we want to be, but this is a great step, and not just 4, 15, as well as our 2 second-round picks. You have an idea of where you think guys will go, but you never know. Sure, that's the consensus, but I'm not looking at it like that because this is a deep draft. There's a lot of good players throughout it. Giannis went 15. Kawhi went 15. Booker went 12. Maxey went 21. Let's not sit here and say because we have the 4th pick, all of a sudden this franchise is back. It's a good opportunity to add high-level talent to this group, and that's what this is. I've said this many times, both here and on Chicago Bears Central. It is not the job of a front office to draft the players that the fan base wants them to draft. It's the job of the front office to get the right guys in here and turn those into the fans' favorites because they end up turning into good players. That's what the role of the front office is, right? So I want to be clear in that one, right? Best available over fit. That's going to be something that we talked about with the roster fluidity that we have here. And that's going to be the thing, right? Like Bryson Graham specifically said, whether it's a 6'4" guard or a 6'11" big, the Bulls need the best player at any position that they pick, right? And I do think that Josh Giddey and Matas Buzelis aren't going to narrow the Chicago Bulls draft focus. They are going to go after the best player available. Front court needs matter, but talent matters more, right? And these are comments from Bryson Graham, not just me, right? So, I know why people are saying, well, take the best available and then we got to get a big at number 15. It may not go that way, right? It may go if they think a guard is the best player available at number 15, he may very well draft a guard. And we could end up with, Caleb and a guard and not address the center until free agency. That is a really big thing there, right? So we'll see, right? I do think that that Bryson Graham is going to take the best player available that he thinks is going to have the best career. And that's what the real rebuilding approach is going to be at number 4 and other things. But I do want to get into this next thing because I do think we can't sleep on the pick at number 15, right? Number 4 is getting most of the attention. We all know that. We understand that. That is the highest pick. The Bulls moved up more than any other team in this draft, so that is going to garner a lot of attention. But the 15th pick is also an extremely valuable pick for the Chicago Bulls. And Graham has specifically mentioned number 15 as an opportunity to add pure talent infusion to this team, right? I do think that the Bulls can look at the number 15 pick to balance out what they get at number 4, or they can look at it and say they can consider size, they can consider shooting, they consider wing depth. The scouting eye that Bryson Graham has is what's going to separate him from AK, that eye for talent. Because like I pointed out, and some people don't like to admit, is that Bryson Graham likes the same type of players that AK wanted to bring to this team. It's the eye for talent that's going to separate that out, right? But with that said, and moving into pick number 15, 2 of my favorite players at pick number 15 really stood out with their draft measurements on yesterday, right? So Cenac Jr., a guy that I love at center for the Chicago Bulls, and a lot of Bulls fans have kind of balked at the idea of Cenac Jr. being a center at the next level. And I say that because for some fans, I'm not saying all, they can't wrap their heads around a player playing a different position at the NBA than they played in college, even though it happens pretty commonly if you really go back and look at it. Actually, very often it happens, right? And Cenac Jr. measured at 6'10" without shoes, 240 pounds, and a 7'5" wingspan. That puts him already taller than centers like Bam Adebayo, Al Horford, who is declining, but you look at what Al Horford has done over the course of his NBA career. Of course, Naz Reid, a player that Bulls fans like as well, Isaiah Stewart, those type of guys. I think his ability to handle the ball and switch out defensively on players also points to him being more of a modern center at the next level. And I think that fans that cry over and say, we got to have a 7-footer at center. I'm tired of having non-7-footers at center. It's more about how big you play than height now in the modern NBA. When you look at it, only 10 to 12 starting centers in the NBA currently right now are legit 7 feet or taller, right? Legit 7 feet or taller. That's just the reality of it. You don't have to be 7 feet tall to adequately play center in the NBA, but you do have to be strong. You have to be smart. You do have to be tough. You do have to be able to do those things. So there are some limitations absolutely about it, right? But I think that when you look at Chris Cenac Jr. and the strengths that he has there, he can absolutely play center at the next level. That's just the reality of it. So, this is a guy that has continually stood out to me, through this draft process that I've talked a lot about. And I love Chris Cenac Jr. Now, I'm not saying that he's the only option that the Chicago Bulls should look at number 15. In no way I'm saying that. I'm just saying that personally, he is one of my favorite options for this. His mobility, his size, and his skill set give him an opportunity to create a mismatch at that center position if he plays down to that. He has all the bit of the physical tools that you look at as a modern big. He's quick off his feet. He runs the floor really well. He changes the directions really well. And he has shown promise as a rim protector and a perimeter defender. And his ability to switch out, get out on the perimeter, on wings, and stay with some guards for some leaks, I think that's going to be the thing that really helps him. He's a really good rotating help side defender as well, and he patrols the glass on both sides of the ball. And offensive rebounding and defensive rebounding are hugely important to a Chicago Bulls team that, we don't know the exact style they're going to play because we're still up in the air about that. We don't have a coach yet, right? But I think his ball handling ability that he has at that center position, his ability to actually get the rebound and push the break, the instincts that he has as a passer to find teammates out in the open floor as well, and with Josh Giddey's ability that he's shown as an off-ball shooter as well last year, I like that. I think that he has an opportunity to create a mismatch against slower bigs at the NBA level. Again, my personal opinion, right? A lot of you guys have cried about us not getting Derek Queen. Guess what? Derek Queen isn't a 7-footer. And Chris Cenac Jr. has a lot of those same tools while having much better defensive upside when it comes down to it. Now, of course, one thing that is a knock on him is his impact has dipped at times, right? I think that's going to be something that he's going to have to work on at the next level. I think a lot of these guys are, and he has been prone to picking up fouls, but like I've said, with modern bigs, that's always the first step that you see with them doing. Like a guy like Jaren Jackson Jr. has been a defensive player of the year, and he still has a problem with fouls, right? So you have that part of it. But Chris Cenac Jr. and his measurables, I think, have firmly played in him as a player that can legit play center at the next level. And I wouldn't be mad if he's on the Bulls board at all. We'll see if they actually get some personal workouts with him, which could say a lot more as we go on with it. Next up, Cameron Carr, a player that has really turned into one of my favorite players at pick number 15. The way that he's grown as a perimeter scorer has just stood out hugely for him. And I think when you look at his draft measurables as well, it puts him in the same place as Cedric Coward of last year. Now, we know that Cedric Coward went in a lottery pick. It wasn't as deep of a draft. And I'm not saying that Cameron Carr necessarily is going to be that 1-for-1, but he measured at 6'4.5" without shoes, which puts him at a legit 6'5" with shoes. Now, he did weigh in at 184 pounds, which is concerning, but I think that every NBA player is going to put on some weight. But you got to look at it. For him to get to 200 pounds, that does mean he's going to have to put on about 20 pounds. We'll see there, right? It is a little concerning. But his wingspan of over 7'7" wingspan, I think puts him in that spot where his perimeter shooting, his switchability defensively, he is a prototypical 3-and-D player in this one. He has all the perimeter shooting skills and scores that you want, right? The tools that you look in his game, that's a legitimate offensive threat at all 3 levels. While I do talk about him as a 3-and-D player, he has a legitimate 3-level scoring potential and doing that without needing the ball in his hands a lot. And that's the part that I really like about Cameron Carr. He doesn't need the ball in his hands to find a way to effectively score and be effective. His ability to move off ball, his ability to, as a cutter, all those type of things, the blend of length, athleticism, confidence, and shooting ability gives him so much long-term appeal for a Chicago Bulls team like this. And I think that if he continues to tighten up his shot selection as well, like you can have a perfect player next to Josh Giddey that also, hell, if you draft Caleb Wilson, you have Matas Buzelis, I think that Cameron Carr is a player that can fit in with those guys, that doesn't need the ball a lot, but still takes pressure off those guys with the way he moves off ball and shoots the ball as well. His shot selection is going to grow. Having a point guard like Josh Giddey and Trey Jones is also going to help him grow as well. And I think that as long as he adds strength to that, I think that's going to be promising for the Chicago Bulls team. So those are two of my favorite. We're going to cover more players at pick number 15, but Cameron Carr and Cenac Jr., both CCs. I guess I didn't even think about that before just saying it now. These are two guys that, I think their draft measurements made me even more enticed by them going into this draft process. And we'll see if Bryson Graham agrees with that. Again, Bryson Graham's approach to the draft is going to be different than fans' mindset with this draft. And that's great. That's what you actually want it to be at. So I think right now it's clear this Bulls team has an opportunity to add some elite talent to this team. And that's the spot that you want to be in, right? The Bulls have the number 4 pick. They have number 15. The draft board's starting to get interesting. We're going to see players move up, move down, move out. If Caleb Wilson keeps rising, the Bulls may have to ask a different question, right? Is Cameron Bruiser the right answer of number 4 if Caleb Wilson is off the board, or is it some other picks? Like if Caleb Wilson is off the board, what do you do at number 4? Then you just take Cam Boozer and don't overthink the thing, right? But hey, I like the way that Bryson Graham did say it. This isn't about forcing fit. The roster is fluid. You take the player that you believe is going to have the best career, and I love that mindset from Bryson Graham in regards to building this roster. So now we got to see it. Can he get the board right? Can he read it right? I think we're going to have a good result in this draft. So let me know what you guys think on all of that down below. Make sure you guys like the video, subscribe to the channel as well. Hit that notification bell so you never miss an episode or an upload. You can follow us at Bulls Central Pod on every social media platform. You send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, bullscentralpod@gmail.com. And lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We are the number 1 spot for everything Chicago Bulls related, but that is thanks to you, lovely and beautiful people. And like I like to end every episode on, go Bulls. Love you guys. See you right if you can, y'all. Peace.
This has been a presentation of the Breaks Media.